me?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, we're live.
We live? Okay, awesome.
It says we're live.
Okay, so hello. Welcome to the Escondido Public Library Virtual Author Chat Series. This series is sponsored by the Friends of the Escondido Public Library and in partnership with the Ripped Bodice Bookstore in LA. I'm your host, Jessica Buck, and today I am joined by two incredible romance authors, Farrah Rochon and Kwana Jackson. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here. I know this is a crazy day.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
I'm so excited. And I have your little intros here for, I doubt anyone that's watching, they probably already know you and love you, but just in case.
Oh, that's kind.
Any new people, so they can get to know you a little bit. So Farrah Rochon is the USA Today best-selling author of more than 35 novels, including her latest release, The Boyfriend Project. The two-time Rita Award finalist is a native of South Louisiana. When she is not writing in her favorite coffee shop, Farrah spends most of her time reading, cooking, traveling the world, visiting Walt Disney World, and catching her favorite Broadway shows. I'm curious to know what your favorite coffee shop is now, but we can get to that question later.
Like nothing. I can't do any of the last three things on there. I can't travel. I can't go to Broadway.
I know. In poor Disney World.
I'm kind of feeling sad for your bio now, Farrah.
I know.
I'm like, Farrah, your coffee shop.
And our second author, a USA Today bestselling author, native New Yorker, Kwana Jackson, aka KM Jackson, spent her formative years on the A train, where she had two dreams: to be a fashion designer and to be a writer. After spending over 10 years designing women's sportswear for various fashion houses, Kwana took the leap of faith and decided to pursue her other dream of being a writer. A longtime advocate for equality and diversity in romance, the hashtag We Need Diverse Romance, Kwana is a mother of twins and currently lives in a suburb of New York with her husband. I've been watching videos, and New York is just like dancing everywhere.
Great time.
It's sparkling lights in the daytime. That's New York today.
New York is really having fun.
Very much so.
I was just on the phone with a friend of mine, and she said with my good friend, I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Oh, the girls are taking an Uber downtown to go get some burgers." I was like, okay. I was like, please make sure that they're okay. Just have them mask up. I know they're going to have fun. And most of my family is in the city too, so I was just like, everybody just wear your mask, dance in the street, have a good time.
Yeah, gotta wear.
We earned it. Listen, we've all earned it.
I agree. Okay, so let's see what we have.
Thanks for having us. I just want to say thank
you.
you.
No, thank you.
This is a good day to be together on camera after a very long week.
Yes.
Thankfully, since we're a little bit light, our hearts are a little bit lighter, so we don't have the stress of everything weighing down on us. We can just enjoy now. And I want to say to anyone watching, if you have any questions for the authors, please feel free to paste those into the Facebook comments, and I will plug those into the questions that I already have prepared. So if you have any questions, then just put them in the comments. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and the books that you write. And who would like to go first?
Go first, Kwana.
Okay, I'll go first.
I think about my answer. What about
I hate this question. It's so hard. It's always so hard to talk about myself. Okay, well, I'm Kwana Jackson. We all figured that out now. I write under two names, Kwana Jackson and KM Jackson. I bought visuals just we don't know my name. So here's me as Kwana Jackson. Here's me as KM Jackson. Look, two blue books. Isn't that funny? I write women's fiction and contemporary romance. My current book is Real Men Knit, which is the story of four foster brothers who are fighting to keep their adoptive mother's Harlem knitting shop open after they pass away. And the youngest brother, Jesse, is finding love along the way. And coincidentally, I'm a native New Yorker, grew up in Harlem, so it's very much a love story to but also a love story to Harlem and my hometown and where I grew up. So that's pretty much what I write. Most of my books, though I have a series set in the Sugar Lake series, it's set in a fictional town in Savannah, but it's always something to do with New York. I'm such a New Yorker. I bleed New York. I love New York. So I sort of always write a little bit of love to New York in my books. So that's me.
And she also knits.
And I also knit. Yes, I do. I also knit. I can crochet a little bit, but there's tons of yarn around me. I also knit, and this is my little crochet piece. But yes, there's always a little yarn, crafty something. I am a crafty, have to be doing something with my hands kind of person.
So Kwana did good with her. Let's see, I have to figure out what am I about. Well, the funny thing is I'm so boring that everything you said in my bio, everything you said is my bio is like what I am. I love to travel. I love to travel around the world. I am too addicted to Disney World for a 43-year-old woman.
No, you're not.
I just showed her my Disney mask. I think I have about 20 Disney masks. For COVID, and I love Broadway. I love to read and write, of course.
He also crochets.
I do. I also crochet, but my book isn't about crochet. Yours.
That's all right. It's something else about you.
My newest is The Boyfriend Project. It's actually a little deviation from what I normally write because I found out this is number 39. I'm actually working on book number 40. Right now, but my previous books have been pretty much traditional romance novels, and this one tiptoes into women's fiction a little bit. I call it romantic women's fiction because it definitely it's both this sisterhood between these three women who discover that they are all dating the same guy. They did not know that. And their sisterhood is a really big part of the book, but it also has a romance in it as well. But that's The Boyfriend Project. They discover they're dating this guy and they decide to form like this pact where they will work on projects that all three of them had put on the back burner instead of, going on dating apps and looking for guys or such. So that's The Boyfriend Project and yeah, that's about it when it comes to me. Now that I can't travel or go to, Broadway, I just sit at home and write. I'm a simple gal. Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It sounds nice.
Except I really do miss my Broadway and my travel. One day we'll get back to it.
We're all missing it.
Yes, we definitely are. Streaming is nice, but it's not the same.
It is not
the same.
The fact that I've only watched Hamilton 3 times shows me that it's all about the live performance. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I need them on stage one day.
Yeah, hopefully soon. We hope. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about when you first started reading romance and how you made that journey from reading it to writing it.
So I'll go first with that one because I actually, my romance journey is a little choppy. I used to read like my aunt's Harlequins when I was younger. I would sneak those, and I read some romance for a while in high school, but not that much. I was actually reading things like John Grisham. Absolutely loved John Grisham and those type books. And then when I got to college, I thought that I had to read the more serious books. So I read like the Oprah Book Club books and the things that made you cry. I thought those serious books were the things I should have been reading. But then my sister gave me a copy of Judith McNaughton's Double Standards, and that like set it's funny because she actually gave me my first real romance, which was Laverne Spencer's Separate Beds, back when I was like 13 years old. That's when I first started reading romance. But then, like I said, it fell off a bit. But once I read that McNaught, that started it for me. Yet I did not write romance. I thought I had to write the serious books. And my first book was not a romance. It was also horrible, but I loved it because it seriously had like 17 points of view. It was crazy. But I found this group of friends who all read Judith McNaught online. And when they discovered that I was wanted to be a writer, they all just assumed that I was writing romance. And I decided, I'll just try that. And it was so much easier and didn't make me cry as I was writing. I didn't suffer writing that first romance novel. So I realized that's what I need to be writing. And it's been romance ever since.
For me, it was, I was always a romance reader. Well, not as little one, but maybe so, because it was like, Judy Blume and things like that. Yeah. So I guess I was always a romance reader. Even, when I was reading Little Women, I was like, oh, it was just the romantic parts that I liked. So it was romance for me always. And my grandmother would read Harlequins, and I would take her Harlequins. With my mother, she was more into Sidney Sheldon's and things like that, and Jackie Collins, and I loved all those sort of books. So it was either romance or women's fiction with a lot of like glitz and glamour, things like that. So I would take all their books, read those. In high school, I did go through, sort of like you, Farrah, a mystery phase. Mm-hmm. And it was like all the Mary Higgins Clarks, and I just read them all. And I was like a book a day reader. I was like, next one. And I, put my romances down for a minute, but then I'd go right back to it. That would last 2 or 3 months, and then back to all romance. Frank McCourt, every once in a while I'll throw this in there. Frank McCourt was my English teacher in high school. So I did love Irish literature and things like that. So I read some of that, but I was never I knew, well, not new, but people would say you should read the serious books, you should read the Oprah Book Club books. And I read a few of them. There are a few serious books that I like, but they never really sort of hit me. It's not that I didn't connect to them, but I would never want to fully immerse myself into them. And I couldn't get the escape I wanted. My real world itself was serious enough that wasn't what I wanted when I sat down to read and lose myself in a story. Like I read John Grisham and things like that, and I enjoyed that because that was not my world, and that was a story I can escape to. I always wanted to escape. When it came down, I did always want to be a writer. When I said I spent my formative years on the A train, literally it was from one end of Manhattan, upper Manhattan, all the way down to lower Manhattan where my high school was. And so I had a lot of time to just sort of think and fantasize. And then later when I would take the bus, it was one end of the Manhattan to the other. And I would sort of make up stories in my head. But then I got into fashion, and I was working, and it took me having to quit my job for my kids that I started to write. I was looking for freelance work, not getting the freelance work, doing some retail work, but then I had the hours at home, and I was reading, and one day I said, a story came to me. I said, very glibly, I think I'll just write a book. Sure, so easy. And I had this idea of a story. It was when you think of it now, probably it should stay where it is, but about an office romance and things like that at a law firm. I won't say where I met my husband, but there you go. I was going to write this story. I wrote it, and then I was, ridiculous enough to query it. It got rejected. And I just sort of kept going after a challenge from my husband. And 11 or maybe 13 years later, I finally ended up getting published. So shows how easy that was for me. Not very. So that's my story of how I started writing. It took having to, leave a job and one day just fall into it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
blew
think
my
the thing.
mind with Frank McCourt. Sorry, she blew
And
my mind with
yeah.
Frank McCourt as her English teacher. She just threw that out. I'm like, wait, what?
Yes,
Okay.
Frank McCourt was my English teacher. And my other little tidbit with that is, and I told him later on, Frank McCourt was my English teacher, and Frank McCourt also, I told him he was responsible for my children because he was the one who pointed me to a job board when I was a senior and sent me on a job that ended up being the place that I had all through college, which ended up being the job, that I had all through college, which is where I met my husband.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable.
my cute meat, my cute meat for my husband involves Frank McCourt. Later on, after I was married years and then had my children, he was speaking at the Museum of Natural History. This is after Angela's ashes, and I was like, "Oh, Frank McCourt speaking. Let's go and see him. He won't remember me anything." I took the twins there. Went with my husband, and I was like, "Do you remember me?" He's like, "Of course I remember you." He's like, "How are you?" I said, "You're responsible for these children." He's like,
Context.
with that great Irish broker. "I'm not taking responsibility for that. No way, Kwana."
That's like the best flex I've heard today. Yeah.
I wasn't a writer back at that time, but I like to think he would be very pleased to know that I write stories now and this, because he was a wonderful literature teacher and we all loved him. So he really gave such a love of Irish literature to all of us. So he was a fantastic teacher. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love the little stories. I was going to say, is with the serious books, you don't always get that HEA that we so desperately need.
I desperately wanted that in my stories. I really did. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we just need that. Like I need to have that happy. Like, oh, I need to be happy at the end, or I'm gonna have to read something else.
Yeah.
Read something else.
It's like, and then they all die. You're like, oh no, I'm gonna have to rewrite this.
No, like no death,
Exactly.
no animal deaths, or it's like,
oh,
I'm ruined. Ruined.
Yeah, I can't take the dog dying.
In books or movies, nothing. Like the first time my husband and I watched John Wick, he did not warn me about Daisy.
That's not fair. Yeah.
And I got so upset that I just like left the room. Like, I'm not watching it.
You were done with it?
It's like, no. But now when we do watch it, I just leave until that part's over.
Oh, they're so horrible. Yeah. Like, no, well, I recently had to do rewatches of them for research purposes for something that I'm working on now. And that's so hard to watch. But I'm very happy for his redemption in that series and the way he gets them back. It's totally justified. You don't mess with a man's dog.
No, you do not mess with the dog.
Nope. So talking about happily ever afters, what do you think the romance reader of today wants to read?
I think they want a happily ever after, for sure. I think, and there's always, I mean, Farrah, you know this, there's always there's an argument every couple of months where somebody comes, up who are not romance readers, talking about, what it should be and could be. And, and that stems from just not knowing and ignorance and thinking that they know better, confusing love stories with romance.
Yeah.
And when I was a new writer, I can admit that I confused it too. And, confused, what women's fiction was with romance, and did not understand that you had to have the happily ever after, and a love story was not a romance. So you have to have that happily ever after. But I also think that the romance reader of today wants the escapism, sure, but they also want a bit of realism. They want realism in their romance. They don't want a complete escape. They don't, and they're not getting, I don't think they're getting it in the romances of today. And that's what a lot of these, so-called think pieces fail to realize when they don't do their research, that the romances of today are not this bodice ripper escape kind of situation, that there's a lot of realisms, there's plenty of strong heroines. There are some alpha heroes, but and lots of them, I like to think I write alpha heroes. I mean, even in my Real Men Knit series, there are definitely alpha heroes who are also beta at the same time. That you can have this duality in your heroes. They can absolutely be both. There's not one or the other. And you can have that in your heroines also. You know, there can be a little bit of both. There can be alpha heroines who are also beta and they're strong. And, you know, I think that's what the readers are wanting and demanding. They don't want, you know, just one or the other. They want to see it. They want to see it all. They want an escape, but also see a bit of themselves and the real world too.
Yeah, when I think about it, because, you know, I've been reading romance a long time, and when I think about the books that are out there today and that readers are demanding, yes, the HEA, you know, Nicholas Sparks does not write romance. You gotta have an HEA at the end, gotta get that in. But I also think that they want, you know, competence in their heroine. The Too Stupid to Live heroine is like gone.
Bye-bye.
You know, that the best way to see that is take some of those old romances and go and look at the Amazon reviews of them now. You know, the difference of someone, I think of some of those that I read a long time ago that I absolutely loved. People hate them now because that's just not the romances of today. They expect so much more, you know, things like consent. Consent is so absolutely needed. That's what the romance readers of today, you know, really want. So for the people out there who's trying to write it, don't try to read those old school romances and think it's going to fly today. So much of that stuff is just not going to fly because, yeah, times change. You know, I think the Me Too movement really changed what romance readers expect from writers. And yeah, that's what they're looking for. So as romance writers, that's what we have to
conversations about, you know, conversations on birth control, things like that. I look for that as a reader. And honestly, I look for that now that, you know, I look for that as a mother too. It's like, as I'm reading and, you know, I write for myself. I try not to think about the reader as I'm writing, but I can't help also, and I hate that this gets into my head because I was like, it'll never get into my head. But I also have to think that my kids are in their 20s now. And it's like, yeah, you know, you're going out and you're like, okay, please be smart. Listen, you know, let's just, we've got to put it out there. We've got to talk about somewhere. We've got to talk about, you know, safety and consent and birth control and things like that. You know, it's got to come up. We've got to have these conversations somewhere.
It's real. It's real.
It's life. It's real.
And that's, yeah, you have to have that. I think they're looking for that in their romances. So yeah.
You know, hopefully, if they're not, they've got to find the writer that they, if they're not looking, if that's not what they're looking for, that's okay. If you know, everyone has their own story. It's okay. I'm not trying to say this is what you should be looking for, because there's a book out there for everybody, and that's fine. You know, it's not, nobody should shame people on what they want to read and what makes them happy. If it's not, there's another writer who's writing what they want. That's fine. You know, it's perfectly fine. You know, some people want closed door, some people want open door. That's okay. But I'm just saying, I'm like, you know, if you're going to read mine, or if, you know, certain kids are going to read mine, I'm just going to remind you to please ask these questions.
Yeah.
I also feel that, and if I'm rambling, that there's a lot you can learn from romance. I really feel there's a lot that can be learned about relationships, good and bad, but that can be taken away into your real life, where you can learn what you would expect and what you will demand in your everyday life. Like, you know, this is a hard no for me. This is a yes. This is what, you know, if I'm going out and dating, you know, this is a jerky person. This is a good person. No, I will not accept this in a relationship. No, I will demand consent, or, you know, testing or whatever. So I think, you know, authors should think about that and bring it into their stories. It's not a bad thing. You know, but just don't hit people over the head with it. Otherwise, your story is going to read like a sex manual, and that's not good.
Or pamphlet.
Or pamphlet, yeah. It's like the New York. The big joke was the New York COVID pamphlet. And it was a little too graphic. It was sort of like, the New York COVID time. It was like, it sort of got into it, like not just put on a mask, but like, got into like, if you're dating, maybe you should not kiss. And maybe you should think about going solo and do this yourself and not do this with a partner. People were like it really, yeah. Comedians had a field day with that. It was like, maybe you should think about solo exploration right now and doing things over Zoom with your partner. People were like, we didn't ask for all that. Is it nyc.gov? Thank you very much. Can we just, it's like you go there with your kids. What should we look up for being safe during COVID? And it was like,
Okay, never mind. So yeah, not that much realism in your romance. Okay.
No. Thank our mayor. He doesn't do some things he's supposed to do, and then he gets into over detail on other things.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, bring it down a notch.
Bring it down.
Oh gosh, talk about off topic. Wow, you see what I told you would happen when we would get together? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, don't put Kwana and Farrah on a panel. Kwana just was.
Well, the next question, Kwana, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier.
Did I?
So for readers who don't typically choose romance or read romance, what do you think is misunderstood about the genre?
I'll let Farrah talk. You talk, Farrah.
Yeah. No, she said it's like do not put yourself in the corner. But no, you did talk on it a little. I think people misunderstand. They think that it's romances. They kind of have this stereotype in them, and I won't even say the things about the old school romances, because I love those books. I really, for me, I think that it is, don't get me on my patriarchy high horse, because I feel it coming on, but that's what it is to me. I think, it's books that women enjoy, that's written by women. So they've got all these horrible connotations that have been put upon them because it's silly women writing these silly books that silly women love to read, when they are some of the most nuanced and deep. You get so much out of a romance, and I think that's what people misunderstand. They think that, it's just a love story and they end up happily ever after, and it's not real, and they don't realize just how much we put these characters through. They don't realize just how serious and deep these stories can be. And I think a lot of people don't realize that they're reading romance as well. I used to go to this bookstore, and this guy, he loved, it was Tammy Hogue, I think. And he was reading those books, and it was before she became this suspense, reader. He was reading basically romantic suspense. He had read a whole bunch of romantic suspense and didn't realize that he was reading romance. And I think that's a lot of it, is people don't even realize that, there are all these subgenres. It's all under the romance umbrella. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of the misunderstanding comes as well. But it's also, again, silly women like these books, so it's not for me, that type of thing. And I just ask people, give it a try. Because if there's any other subgenre that you read, there's a romance.
There's a romance holding it. There's usually a romance threaded through to give it something to hold it together.
I mean, it's just that we have romance in sci-fi, we have the suspense, we have the paranormal. Any other genre out there, romance has a subgenre of it. So yeah, just give it a try, and you probably will find out that you actually like it, and they're not as silly as you think. Yeah, I didn't get that far up on the high horse. I'm proud of myself.
I
wasn't that bad. I could go on
good. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, no soapbox today. Good. Pet myself. Okay.
That's because you're feeling good about today.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I agree. I think it's just so easy to, it's just an easy way to dismiss something they don't understand, or something that they're maybe slightly, I won't say jealous of, but just that they don't understand. But it's just, another way of putting, saying, oh, that's women's work, or, putting it down, or, which is so ridiculous, but it's done.
Yeah.
It's just something that has been done for so long by this society,
Yeah.
but placing labels on certain things, instead of just saying, oh, you're a writer, oh, you're a novelist, oh, you're a romance writer. So that changes it somehow.
Mhm.
If I go to people, if I go somewhere and I say I'm a romance writer, it's different than if I say I'm a literary writer or I'm a thriller writer or something. You get a different look,
Yeah.
as if our 90,000 words are easier or to put together than theirs. Our story is easier to craft than theirs, and
No.
okay, well, you talk to me when you do it. It's like, yeah. And
Yeah, I was gonna say that I'm always amazed at how you're able to put together just these beautiful, complex, and there's a happy ending stories. It's like happy endings aren't easy to have like make sense with a story. Like you can't just be like, oh, and they worked out. It's like, no, we need to believe that it's working out, that they're going to be happy. So, and that's hard to do.
I'm amazed too that I do it. Seriously.
Sometimes I don't know how I do it. I'm amazed at so many authors that they can do it. I'm amazed when I'm reading a book and he's like, I'm like, wow, this person's so talented. It's just, it amazes me how I know it's going to be a happy ending, but I also didn't know it was going to be a happy ending. I'm like, this is not going to work out.
And they do it.
And that's what I love about romance, and I'm like, wow, you got me again. I didn't think they were going to make it. It's like that black moment, and it's like that black moment and that other black moment. I'm like, they're never gonna make it. They're never gonna make it. Oh, this is horrifying. Oh, I'm so upset. I'm so upset. They're not gonna make it. But I knew they were gonna make it. It says romance right there on the spine, and I'm not one of those to read the back page. I don't do that. So, so I'm quite amazed at authors that are able to do it. How I do it, I don't know. Sometimes I mess it up, but it's like I do it. I made up the world and do it, but yeah, it's kind of fun. It's cool. It's exciting, and it is complicated. It is complicated. Sometimes like in real life and in relationships, you just want to say, forget it. I'm done with you and go separate ways, but you can't.
Darn contracts.
Darn contracts. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So this is one of the questions that I'm excited to ask because I can't wait to hear what you say. And I'm excited for our readers to hear and our viewers to hear what you say too. So I want to talk a little bit about diversity in romance and romance publishing. So do you feel that there is enough representation for own voices, authors, and characters? And what would you as a writer and a reader like to see?
Well, Kwana has a lot that she can say.
What if I don't say any? What if I say it's perfect and it's great? Let's leave it.
Then I will say she is not telling the truth. No, the Rip Bodice is sponsoring, part of this, and they put out. All you have to do is look at the survey that they put out. They put out for the past few years that shows just how. It's laughable that still in 2020 that they're so
cryable.
Yeah, and I think people, this year especially, a lot of own voices writers were elevated. It became cool to, say that you were reading an own voices book, and you started seeing them everywhere to the point that some other writers were saying, well, if you're not writing a diverse book, you can't get published. And I'm thinking, are you serious? This survey comes out and it shows that, what
the reality is,
at some, I think the largest one was maybe 20-something%.
But can you speak on that largest one though? Where I will not.
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to.
You're gonna make me do it? Okay.
But no, I mean there's not nearly enough. It's not representative. And just because there's a lot of noise, and a lot of people sharing, you know, online, think about all the books that they're not sharing. You know, people are so quick to share the book by the Latina author that they just bought, you know, that one book that they bought, yet the other 50 books they bought this year were all by white authors. So I think it's like skewed in people's mind that, oh yes, there's so many out there. I see them online all the time.
But you're seeing the same ones online all the time.
Exactly.
The same ones circulating online all the time. And there's so many more.
Yeah.
That aren't getting the publicity.
Not at all. You know,
Not
if it were not for independent publishing, self-publishing, there would be so few. It would be only
so few.
So yes, that's not, and we should recognize that they do have a lot of those writers out there. They aren't necessarily getting.
There's tons. The whole bestseller, the whole bestseller list. Oh, not the whole, but pretty much most of the African American romance bestseller list. A good portion of it is indie.
Yeah.
That is not getting recognized in you know, in what you see in mainstream publications, in what you see, you know, getting shouted out on people's list and things like that. But that's what's really, you see people are buying, people, you know. But people have to actually search for, people are you know, readers are avid, and people are, and they're searching for those books and they're buying those books, but you don't see them getting the press. I mean, let's just be honest about it. You don't see them on the bookshelves.
Yeah, but thankfully they have that path.
They do have that path, but it's like, you know, you see the same things. It's definitely not, it's not equal representation. The numbers will show you it's not. There's not equal representation. For many years it hasn't been when it comes to contracts.
Yeah.
When it comes to marketing. Hopefully it will change. I mean, we can honestly say we are starting to see a bit of a change. But I'm older than you, Farrah, but you know, I come from a world, and this is, you know, these sort of wounds are going to take a long time to ease out. You know, I come from a world where we went to the bookstores and we were segregated in the bookstores.
Yeah.
We had to go to the African American interest section just to see to find a romance. And they were few and far between. Yeah. When I would read my grandmother's Harlequins, I couldn't find the Kamanis because the Kamanis weren't in the bookstores that I had to go find, few and far between. So she just had the Harlequins that were there, and they were all by the white authors. And that's just how it was. And when you had to go to find those books in the African American intersection, this is just me personally. I felt like I was going to it, like this said, okay, this big part of the store here is the whites section, and this is the blacks only section. And it felt like, here's the white fountain, here's the black fountain. Honestly, that's how I felt as a kid. I just wanted to browse in the bookstore.
When I was first published, that's when, you know, we still had Borders and we still had, you know, some of those stores.
Yep.
And my books were in that section. I would say, okay, Farrah Rochon should not be on the same shelf with Toni Morrison and Richard Wright. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I did not write those books, you know, but that's what it was. It was, you know, as a writer, as a person, to have my books categorized based on my race instead of being with my genre that I wrote, it was hard to see that. And they made all of these different excuses for why it was the case, but that never flew with me. And I think that's why it's going to take a long time, because of that segregation that happened with bookstores. That's why I think it's going to take a long time for publishing to kind of make its way out of seeing books, especially books by African American authors. You know,
because it was pretty much we were the only ones who had that segregation.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going to take so long especially, and I was thinking about this part, you know, today, and I always think it and rethink it. I had called it economic disenfranchisement of the African American author, because it really did. It took away a huge chunk of money for the African American author, because they would then say, your books don't sell as well as the books by the white authors. But of course, they're not going to sell as well as the books by the white authors, because they were put over here and thought of as other. Meanwhile, research has shown, like the Pew Research has shown, that African American readers, college educated Black women, read more than anybody else. So that means, if that's the research and that shows it, that means that Black women were reading more. So Black women were reading books by Black authors, some if they could find them, but they were reading all these books by white authors. So African American women were fueling all the white authors. So we were reading, because we just like to read, we were reading everything. I mean, I know I was. You were saying most of your favorites were white authors. My favorites were white authors. My grandmother's favorites, because she read what she had near her, were white authors. So we're buying white authors because that's all we had. And they're telling us that the Black authors don't sell because we didn't have access to them. You know, it's just so skewed. It's not fair. So, you know, my feeling is, we just need equal representation on the shelves. And when I say equal, I mean more than equal. Like, give the white readers the same amount, give them not 13%, which is like what's the 13% of, you know, there's 13% Blacks in the country. Give 50%, give more than 50%, give a full range, so that white readers need to get sort of retrained, sort of like Black readers were trained back in the day to read white authors. Like, I read books by white authors. I can see the characters. I can fall in love with the stories. Some of my favorite stories, my favorite authors are white authors. I think white readers need to learn how to retrain their reading so that they can see these books and don't feel that they're others, that they're just books and stories and they're great. And I feel that this would help not only the authors, but I think it will help sort of society as a whole, and get people thinking differently, sort of how we think about each other and how we think about people's lives, how we look at each other, you know, you know, empathy for other people. It's a whole lot. I think it will, you know, it's a big, yeah, I think it would go very far, but it would take a long time. It's not an overnight thing, but I think it's a real difference in how different cultures see each other with the way in their reading habits, you know?
Yeah.
Just, it might be a dream of mine, but it's not a bad dream.
It's an entire other talk.
It is another talk.
About, you know, diversity and that representation, and making sure it is the correct representation. Because we've also seen books that have been held up as, you know, okay, this book has people of color in it, and it's filled with stereotypes or something like that.
Oh no, we don't want that.
Yeah,
which is why you need a broad range too, because it's not like anyone's a monolith. Your books are not the same as my books. Your representation is not the same as my representation is not the same as this one, you know. So you can't, you know, get it twisted. For years it would be, you know, the great Beverly Jenkins is the one that this one had over here, and this one is the one you had over here. You know, you need broad ranges of everything, and you need this of every race, you know, so that we can see, you know, for so long, the only Asian author that I got to read and I loved and, you know, wanted so much more was Amy Tan, you know, and it's like, and I read it and I fell in love with it, and then it was like, well, where is the rest? You know, why isn't publishing giving me more? You know, I read that and I fell in love with the world, and all I did was want more, and I couldn't go to the bookstore and find it. You know, this was, you know, pre-fast speed internet where you could find everything.
Yeah, but they still have a long way to go. There has been
such a long way to go.
Improvement, but
there is some improvement, but let's just, you know, keep going. I will be happy when we no longer have to use hashtags like we need diverse books and we need diverse romance. It'll be, oh, happy day.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just want to say about libraries that we mostly, when it comes to ordering, we're looking at the popular books because that's what people want, the popular books. But if they're only being fed what are the popular books. That's all they're going to ask for.
Yeah.
So if anyone's watching, you want your library to have more diverse books, more books by diverse authors that you love but aren't seeing attention, you can tell your library that you want those books. It's called a purchase request. And if you go on your library's website, you can probably find that information. Tell them, I want this book. And most of the time, we buy them because we want what you want.
I've used that before, yes.
Yes, please do. My husband actually did it for my book, but also did it for quite a few Black authors' books that he wanted to see. You know, some political books, some different kind of books, and you know, that he wanted to read. And I'm like, yes, do that, because you know, we live right outside of Manhattan, but it's not a predominantly Black area. But it's like our local library should have these. Put them right there so more people can read them. I think it's a wonderful thing. Please do that. You know, there are so many wonderful authors, and people should read them and see them.
Yeah.
Yes, that was my little library plug. So let me just check Facebook just to see if I missed any questions. Just a lot of people that are enjoying this conversation.
Oh, thank you, whoever's here. Thank you. We can't see you, but
we can.
So Robin, Joy, lots of joy. Rob, Meredith, Karen, thank you so much for listening and for commenting. And if anyone's interested in the Writ Bodice State of Racial Diversity and Romance Report, I pasted the link into the comments. They'll take you to all of them. So we had an email question from Karen specifically for Kwana. So I'll get to it really quick so I don't forget. So will you be including in the next books any of the patterns used by the guys as they knit in the shop? That would be so much fun.
It would be fun, wouldn't it? If I was that good a knitter, it would be fun. I don't think I will be.
You totally
that is something to think about. I will. I'm not good enough to make.
At least on your website, you need to.
At least on my website, I will. You know what? I'm not good enough to make up a pattern, but maybe I can figure that out. Or I will talk to my publisher about that, and maybe I can do something in conjunction with somebody, or talk to somebody to see if they can donate a pattern, because I do know some fabulous knitters, and maybe somebody can help me make a pattern and we can put something on the website, because that could be fun. You know, that's a wonderful suggestion, Karen.
I do.
Thank you for that, because I know knitters who are better than me, and I can talk to them, because I have one fail-proof sock pattern that I do use, but it's someone else's, so I don't want to steal it, but maybe I can do a variation of it, you know, put a drop stitch in it.
I love that.
I'm starting to think about my holiday knitting right now.
I was surprised to hear like how many romance readers are crafty, because I run a romance book club at the library, and we just started talking about knitting, and all of a sudden all of them started talking about like the knitting that they do and like the quilting that they do, and I'm the only one that doesn't. I'm just like, should this be like the romance / like knit book club?
Yay! I love that.
I think that it's in Baton Rouge. I think they have like this reading and knitting thing that they do. So yeah, it's a thing.
That would be the Romance Book Club 2.0, the After Hours Book Club where we knit.
There you go.
You can do audio and knit or crochet.
I do that all the time. Yeah.
See?
We'll listen to an audio book and crochet.
Listen to an audio book.
Yep, that's what they all do.
Knitting.
They like audiobooks and they knit.
I always have to be just doing something. If I'm not knitting or doing something, then I'm eating chips. So.
And I'm just going to do a few more shout outs to some people. Diane, Monique, Cynthia, thank you for being here and commenting.
Oh, you all are so great. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited.
And since we're a little bit at the end, I'm going to go with the closing questions, just so that you ladies can get to your celebrations, because today is a day to celebrate. I'm not going to say why, because I have no opinions.
No opinions.
No opinions.
But
today
if
was
you
a day
want
to
to
celebrate that we're no longer just watching watching the clock on the TV.
I have no opinions outside of Twitter. That's what I'll say.
I was about to say, like, if you want to know, check my Twitter.
If you want to know, look at our social media. That's it. How about that?
So the closing questions, the first one is the question that I always ask at the end of these chats. It's my favorite, and I always love hearing what the authors have to say. And that is, what is your favorite library memory?
Go ahead, Farrah.
I know for me, the library was my sanctuary. And I remember the library was where I first got my hands on John Grisham's A Time to Kill. And that really is what started me like really reading. You know, I would read a book here and there at the school library sale or things like that. But my cousin was reading The Pelican's Brief and she was so engrossed. So I went to the library and the librarian said, well, he has another book in it. I still remember that blue cover and Jake Brigance tied up against that thing. I still remember it. I took it, I checked it out, and I don't think I slept. I think I was like maybe 13 years old or something like that. I have to see when the book came out. But it just, that, I still remember walking into the library and her holding it out for me because, you know, I called and asked it. And it was like the moment that this journey really started because it sucked me in so much. And that's just how I fell in love with books again. And I will always remember that was it. I miss that library. They tore it down and built another. But I miss that library so much. It's much nicer now, but there's so many memories at that library. So, but that's the one.
Why do I feel like one day you're gonna write some suspense, and I feel like I'm missing out if you don't, because you're lighting up, ma'am. Just saying.
She knows all I do is watch 2020 and Dateline. I'm totally
I realize this. I know that's all you do is watch 2020 and Dateline. And now that I'm seeing this side of you that I've never seen. This is like the third time you've mentioned John Grisham, and I'm like,
totally
I feel like I want to read this. I'm getting excited. I'm never gonna let this go. So just saying. I want some suspense from Farrah Rochon. We're gonna start a hashtag. I'm gonna start. Well, we're me. Farrah Rochon suspense coming soon, and it'll just blow up. And some publisher is gonna be listening to this and offer you a huge contract.
She's so
thank
mean.
me in the acknowledgments.
She's so mean. Give your favorite library memory.
Because you know I do that. Well, I used to talk about my Little Women, go to the library as a kid all the time and get out the same copy of Little Women, and that was mine for a long time. But if I'm truthful, here it is. Because I was thinking about this today, going over the questions. My favorite one is, my son was a big T-ball baseball kid, and we'd always go to attached to the field is a library here in Yonkers. And I always took the kids to the library because I just love the library, and it's just a place to hang out when you have twins. There's things to do. Let's go to the library. My kids love the library. And sometimes during this practice, I'd take my daughter there and we'd go back and forth. But later on, my best library moment was later on taking my kids to the library and seeing my own books there on the romance shelves. And that was just my best, most proudest library moment was going there. And I was so shocked. I didn't like expect them there. Like we were there because I was like, you know, when you love romance, you know exactly where the romance section is in your library. You just make a beeline for there. And I'm making a beeline for there. And it was like, Kim Jackson, look. I was like, look. And they were so proud of me. My kids are very, like, they're always thinking it's so cool. And like for them to see my books there, they thought that was the coolest thing. And so that was seeing my books in that library for the first time with my children. Like I could cry thinking about it now still.
That's awesome.
I love that. So if I ever see like a book of mine at the library, and if like, even if I go there now to see the spines worn, I love seeing my books with the spines all like worn, meaning somebody actually checked it out and read it.
I know.
That's like the biggest thrill for me, I think for any author, to know that somebody actually checked out your book.
That is cool.
I love it. So that's my greatest one, seeing it with my kids for the first time. Yeah. That's the only time they think I'm cool. Otherwise they're like, what are you calling me for? Whatever, you know.
That's sweet.
I'm corny.
Stop, it's sweet.
Nothing wrong with corny. So the last question is just what's next for you?
What's next? Well, for me, I have two things in the works. Book 2 in the Real Men Knit series is in the works, which is about our firefighter brother Lucas, called Not Again. So that'll be coming hopefully next year. We're working on that. And then I'm also working on here. This is my prop for this one. I should have put my mug. My prop for this one is my Keanu Reeves pillow. Then I'm working with two different things, two different pillows. Something for forever. So this one's from Berkeley. Something from Forever called How to Marry Keanu Reeves in 90 Days. A rom-com that's coming out next year also. So I have two things in the works.
Now I know
And
why
I'm really
the research.
my research is so much fun. Yeah. My job. Listen, the writing part is super hard, but the research parts of my
It's fun.
my work is really a lot of fun. I have watched so many Keanu Reeves movies this year, and it did not suck.
Did you watch the Knock Knock one on Netflix? Because
that is the only one that I have been saving, but I watched all the previews, and it looks like a lot of, it looks like a whole lot of mess. I was like, don't do it. And he does
now
it.
I'm intrigued. Okay.
Yeah, don't do it, but he does it.
We couldn't finish it.
I'm saving that.
No, she said they couldn't finish it. Now I'm really intrigued. A train wreck is.
We just skipped to the end to like see what happens.
I'm
it was
just
just too much.
But you know what? Because it's research and it's Keanu, I'm gonna watch every single scene.
I'm gonna let
Listen, I watched every scene of Siberia. I've watched every scene of Siberia. So there you go.
Oh gosh. For me, my next book is the next one in my series. I wish I could show the cover, but I can't show the cover yet. But it's called The Dating Playbook. And it features, I know. It features my the youngest girl in my trio of women. Her name is Taylor, and she is Instagram fitness guru, and she's trying to make a name for herself. And she gets a call from a guy who is a former NFL player, and he is trying to make a play to get back into the NFL, and he wants to hire her as his fitness person. What do you call it? Workout consultant, whatever you call that thing.
Trainer.
His trainer. He wants to hire her as his trainer. And Taylor thinks that it's going to help put her new business on the map, but he doesn't want anyone to know that they're working together because he doesn't want anyone to know that he is trying to get back into the NFL. So it's very cute. And I'm working on it now. It'll be out next, late summer. At this point, I'm just saying late summer 2021 because it's moved around a bit. It's been.
Do we know what's going on? Like next year? This year has made next year strange for everyone.
No, it's like let's hope that late summer 2021 is the date because COVID has just. But anyway, it's getting there.
I'm so excited. Well, thank you so much for being here, for talking with me. This has been so much fun. Thank you to all the viewers who were asking questions and just letting me know how much you were enjoying this conversation. Thank you to the Rip Bodice for working with me. You can purchase books by the authors from the Rip Bodice bookstore. And if you're interested in more free online programming like this, you can check out our Facebook events to see all the free stuff we have planned. We have more author chats planned. The next one is December 4th at 3 p.m. here on Facebook with Jacqueline Middleton on her book tour. So if you get a chance, please tune in for that one. And I'm going to not beg, but ask very nicely. I just pasted an event survey into the comments. It is only 3 questions, very, very short, just to let me know if you enjoyed the chat, where you heard about the chat, and just let me know if there's anything that we can improve to make the experience better in the future. So thank you so much to the authors. Thank you to the viewers. I hope you have a wonderful day and celebrate. Just celebrate and be happy.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Bye.